Well, you've heard all about the nasty sex ed curriculum, the one that means I'm a homophobe because I disagree with it. I happen to think certain parts are age inappropriate. We've talked about it on the show. We've told you about the gentleman that wants to use regulators to shut us down over this. Well, now we've got some more details on it, including a poll that shows, hey, not only are we on your side, but you are on our side. Michael Coren joins us now to chat more about this. Michael, shocker for you that most parents think that some of the things they want to teach are a little inappropriate. They're not overly comfortable with this?
No, this is just intellectualizing the instinctive. We know that parents are the best judges of children and parenting. And it's always the, if you like, the chattering classes, the elite who think they know better. You know, nothing was broken. It wasn't as though people were saying, we have to teach our kids more about, forgive me, oral and anal sex. You know, Jimmy and Sally are running home and saying, please, Mummy, I need to know more. No, this is contrived. It's artificial.
Here is, and here's part of it. This is one of the questions that was put forward by Abacus Data in a poll of more than 1,000 Canadians. They said, is it appropriate or inappropriate gender identity to teach gender identity, which includes male, female, two-spirited, transgender, transsexual, intersexed, as well as sexual orientation in grade 3? Because this is what McGuinty proposes.
Yeah.
And while he has made it clear to mainstream media that, well, it's under reconsideration, whenever he speaks to gay and lesbian activists or their media outlets, they make it very clear, don't worry, it's coming back.
Also, those of us who say this is what will be taught, we're accused of being hysterical and dishonest. Well, if someone can prove to me that we are, fine, I'll accept it, I'll change my ways. But if you look at the curriculum and then the advice guide that goes with it, that's very, very significant, this is what will be taught. And those figures are interesting, but it's not just that 56% are opposed, it's actually 83 or 84%, because if you include those who say, well, some of this is okay and some of it is fine. Make sure that kids know that gay people are to be respected. I mean, that's a self-evident truth. The vast majority, more than 80% of people say it is wrong to teach young children the details of homosexuality.
My problem is the age level that they want to start this at. At grade 3, saying, well, some people are two-spirited. Well, what's two-spirited? I've tried explaining two-spirited to adults, and they don't quite get it. So wait a minute. I can't be two-spirited if I'm white or Filipino or if I'm black. No, you've got to be First Nations to be two-spirited. And so does that mean if I'm First Nations and gay, I'm two-spirited? Well, not necessarily. How do you explain this thing to somebody in grade 3? And then the other one, if we can bring up the other poll, this is the one on how to teach safe ways to perform oral and anal sex. You talked about how some people will be saying this isn't in the curriculum. These two questions, the first one I showed you and this one, are directly from the proposed curriculum. So, teaching safe ways to perform oral and anal sex in grade 7, is that appropriate or inappropriate? 59% are clearly saying it's inappropriate, and you want to include the 27% on our side
remember,
as well.
Only 14% say it is appropriate. The 27% that say
they're kind of squeamish.
Well, I think it's more than that. What are they actually saying? They're probably saying, well, no, maybe under certain conditions, if it is occurring. Let's look at the premise, the very question. Safe ways to perform. There are many reasonable people, including myself, I think I'm reasonable in society, who would say that anal and oral sex in themselves have a certain moral context to them, and we don't approve. So you're saying they're absolutely fine, there's no standard here, a safe way to perform. By the way, again, I don't want to be too graphic here, but there is no safe way to perform anal sex. It is unnatural. It leads to all sorts of possible tears, damage, and potential disease. There is a reason why sexually transmitted diseases and AIDS and HIV are so common with people, male and female, who perform this form of sodomy or buggery. I mean, we are allowed to say those words, aren't we? We can talk about perverse sexuality, but if we say what they really are, then we're homophobic.
Well, those are still legal definitions, so you can. Denouncing people, though, because this is what I keep getting told is, well, they're not going to teach them how to do it. Stop saying they're going to teach them how to do this in class. How do you teach a child safe ways to perform? And you and I can disagree with the language, but the language was chosen to model what is in the curriculum. But how do you say to someone, okay, Johnny, Jane, we're going to teach you safe ways to perform oral and anal sex. Well, what's that? Don't worry, we're just going to tell you how to do it safely. Doesn't that imply you must teach them how it's done?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it not only implies, it demands a moral neutrality to the very acts in themselves. And there are many people, and it could still be the majority. I would say the majority of Canadians, a vast majority, who would say, no, I think anal sex is not appropriate behaviour. It's quite animalistic. But you could teach a child a safe way to jump between houses, and they'll probably jump between houses, and they may well die. You don't introduce something which is alien and foreign to those kids. There's a certain age when you know children are sexually active, when you want to make sure, ideally parents would, but maybe teachers have a role as well, partly, to make sure that they're being safe and responsible. But this is introducing a concept, a behaviour, a way of life far too early. So in that way, it is indoctrination. And well, I'm making this point, Brian, because every time look, I'm a worldly guy. You know, I grew up in the centre of London, England. Believe me, I've been around. I know how things work. Whenever we say this is wrong, oh, you're suburban, you're hysterical, you don't understand. I've got 4 kids. I know what I'm doing. I do understand. It's those people who want to reshape childhood and reshape children are the ones who don't understand.
Well, and they don't want parents to have a say. If we could bring up that poll question on whether parents should be able to withdraw their children, because this was part of the curriculum and part of the curriculum guide, just for those following along at home. Sorry, could we see that again? Was 62, what was the percentage there?
Overwhelming.
On whether parents should actually be able to withdraw their children from school. There we go. Parents, should they be notified when their children are going to be taught sensitive material? 57% said yes, 35% said no. Public education is meant to create standard levels of knowledge among students, and sex education is important. And then here, who should have the greater say? 41% say parents should have a greater say in curriculum. 40% say no, leave it all to the experts. I think parents are being quite clear here and saying, fine, we know that there's going to be some stuff that we're going to have to leave to experts, but we should have a say. We should be able to dictate when our children show up to school and when they don't, and if they should be withdrawn from certain material. I'd
like to know that the 40%, I think it was, who said educational experts, I'd like to know if they're parents or not. I get the feeling that those who said parents should be involved tend to be the parents who were answering the question. Now, we've had so-called educational experts teaching our kids about sex for, 30 years now, and the rates of unwanted pregnancies, sexuality-related depression, STDs, teenage pregnancies have gone up year after year after year. If you could show me that...
some of the infections tenfold.
Yes, exactly. So if you could say to me, look, OK, we've taken the parents out of the equation. It's teachers who are teaching about sex ed now, and we all are so much happier. Then I would gradually say, well, you've got a point. But the practicality, the pragmatic result is it doesn't work. It's been a colossal failure.
Now, I'll leave you with this, Michael. The teachers that I talk to, even if they are able to get through the material, they're not overly happy and not overly comfortable talking about some of this with the kids. Michael Coren, thanks for dropping by.
Pleasure.